Hello and welcome. Peace greetings to everyone. This is our next series on insights with global leaders and transformation leaders. And we have with us Mr. Steve Podmore. Welcome, Mr. Steve.
Hi, Azeeza. It's really great to see you and really looking forward to this discussion. So, hi.
Thank you so much. And in this series, a project of Go Global Business School is about bringing together trailblazers and business leaders and transformation experts who have been around the world doing some very, very insightful work. And they come on this show to share with us their heart, their journey, and what's possible for the world, and inspiring the audience on their own journey in life. So today we have Mr. Steve. And as we said, in the brochure you would have seen, he is the founder of Transform Global, and he's a founder and presenter at funding the Global Goals.tv. I just love that name, from UK. And I think, and you're based in London, Mr. Steve?
That's right. Yeah, sure. East London, near Canary
More
Wharf.
than, sorry?
Near Canary Wharf, our business district to the east of London. But yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And this conversation we're going to have is going to be so meaningful with all your expertise in the last 16 years. You have been working on the journey. We want to hear more insights and have you share with our audience what's possible in the space of sustainability and development, especially with all the names you have: Transform Global and funding global goals. I just love all these names. Where do you come up with all these names?
It's funny, isn't it? The development of an idea, it's a science, it's an art, and it's just kind of inspiration. And the names, it was actually just over 14 years ago, so not quite 16.
Okay.
And the idea originally was called the Global Sustainability Challenge, and the idea was really to create a competition to help find young people with amazing ideas and to introduce them to capital and to sort of capability to progress those ideas all around sustainability. And back then, that idea never happened. I struggled to get it funded and to get it so it could properly launch. But in the development of that idea, what I realized is there was a huge problem all over the world, and that is, the finance was just not flowing to the things that could have, or that I perceived could have, very significant impact. Sometimes things that needed greater understanding. Some of what we need to do isn't simple. It has complexity. It can be simplified. But what I was experiencing directly, and saw many others experience, was, capital and investment was very short term and very much focused on the exit and sort of the things that were not capital intensive, things like venture capital. And I kind of really got frustrated. I really, I had, earlier in my career, I'd had similar struggles on an e-learning venture and a human resources, a talent management venture I was involved with. And I thought, is it just me, or is this like a bigger problem? And the more I looked into it, the more I realized this was pervasive all over the world. It's different regionally and geographically and sectorally. But the basic problem is we are not providing what I term intelligent access to capital. And you may, and that incidentally, and to lead into what you're doing, it's not just about the money, it's about the organized help and support. So whatever finance does come in can lead to amazing high performing teams and have enough runway so that they've got enough ability to deliver. Sometimes too much money is as much of a problem as too little. But if you can provide the kind of support that you're delivering in an organized fashion, embedded with the investment, the chances of success are much, much higher. So anyway, without sort of going on, the idea developed over a number of years. I didn't think it was going to be a bank. I cheekily call it a new World Bank, but better. And that's the cheeky description. But of course, there's space for the World Bank. We're not going to nudge them out of their existence. But really, the idea for what we've created, we call it a cross between we call it a sustainable innovation and development bank, And part of that is a bit like an old-fashioned merchant bank, a development bank, and a commercial investment bank. And ultimately, its sole purpose is moving money, a little bit like the sign behind me about the media format. It's moving money to where it can have greater effect. It can better serve people and planet all over the world. But to do that, you need new fund structures and new platforms and new institutions that are fit for purpose and that are not just focused on short-term returns alone. So that's at the heart of what I'm trying to do. And it's a longer discussion on how it took 14 years and how the names developed, but you get the idea.
It's very interesting what you are saying. When audience are looking at it, they will be like, isn't that what right now people are doing? People are doing all kind of things, trying to raise funds, put people online for new startups and all of that. But you're talking about doing all of this, like starting all these thoughts 14 years ago when nobody was looking at any of this. So you had before the time idea and knowledge, like you were ahead of time, I would say.
I forget who said it, but they said there's no point being on time. You've got to be early. And Woody Allen also said 90% of success is turning up. And persistence is pretty important because you learn. You get to. It's almost like trying to climb Everest, right? You can see it from far away, and you kind of know where you want to go. And then you get to base camp and you think this is pretty exhausting just to get to base camp. Okay. And then you keep going and then you've got to acclimatize to a new level. And I feel where I am right now is kind of like the final descent or ascent, which is pretty hairy, but it's also very exciting.
That makes you more experienced than those coming into the game. It's not about competition. It's not about anything like that. It's basically you are more mature enough to guide people, and which is so important because what you're talking about is funds getting I love it, intelligently distributed. The intelligent money needs to go in like to the places where it needs to belong rather, so you have that experience, that passion to ensure that it happens in the right direction. So that is what your 14 years of experience is worth versus someone who just gets excited and wants to do it like yesterday.
You see, the thing is, I think we all need help and support. And if you look at the failure rates, both in investment funds, and in impact investment funds and in philanthropy, or in development finance institutions, there's a matching challenge. Those who've got all the capital want the projects and the people behind them, but they often want them to be really, really well presented. It's almost like they want it to be nice and neat with a little wrapped up with a nice, neat bow on top. So it's perfect for them to invest in. On the other side, these with the capability, they don't always speak the same language. They're not always investment ready. They don't have teams that are operational. But that's because if you look at it from an economic standpoint, or capital has gone to very big business and to speculative financial markets. And what I call the plankton. So if I step back, part of this journey, I kind of developed a theory. I call it the economic food chain theory, and the sort of ideas around that as well, which I call innovation immunity. And I think it's really important to I'm sorry I'm veering off, but hopefully I'll come back.
It's good. It's good.
So it's important to really understand the problem. So the experience that you talk about, I'm an outsider. I don't have a degree. I've never formally been a banker, although I'm launching quite a large institution or business. Institution's got the wrong connotation, but ultimately it's designed to be a very fast-moving social commercial enterprise, but operating in some places in regulated spaces. And that sort of journey of being an outsider, sometimes you can see things that are really different. You can see things that the people inside, cannot see, or if they can, they can't perceive how to change things. Whereas if you're looking from like we met on Clubhouse, and there was someone in Clubhouse, a lady called Miriam, who was talking a book that she's writing, and I've told everyone about this book because I love the name, even though it's not quite finished yet, I think. And it's called the Drone and the Shovel. And what essentially she's saying, and I feel very much like that duality. Sometimes I'm looking at the very macroeconomic level. What are the drivers? Why is money going to where it is going? How are fund structures? How is innovation enabled or stifled? But then I'm also looking at the shovel. The people who are really because. Yeah, but I'm one of those as well, right? For many years, I've been on the search for capital and often unsuccessfully, and trying to figure out why it's been so difficult. And so I've, not only do I recognize this matching challenge, I also, have lived it for many years myself, and fallen at almost every juncture. But I keep getting up, and sometimes when you keep getting up, that's when you learn. But it shouldn't be so difficult. But the point I was making is, if you realize that by capital going to the speculation and big business in broad terms, some good, some not so good, it kind of creates a vacuum. And therefore, what I call the plankton of our economic food chain, so that's small and medium businesses, it's startups, it's growing enterprises, it's things that are doing good for the world in infrastructure. I think all economic activity should do more good than bad. We know sometimes, if you're extracting minerals, there's a cost, but if you can deliver more good than the cost, then on balance it's a good thing. It's when that balance shifts, and we have what economists call negative externalities, the costs others have to pay for in society. That's when things go wrong. So just to summarize, the realization is, entrepreneurs need a fair shot. They need a capital on fair terms. If it's a no, they should have the right of reply. They should have an ability to answer that no, or at least showcase how they might be delivering what the investors think they might not be delivering. Anyway, so the bottom line is, what I've developed is a system to create a bank that will create funds that can do that in a very fair and intelligent way, but at very big scale around the world. So although it will go to, in some cases, startups and early stage entities, it's designed to go to the ones that have really got high growth potential. Now, those funds are not yet raised. We're still raising our equity into the business, which is 30 million pounds sterling, and that will enable us to launch the media parts of our business, funding the Global Goals.tv and something called Big Crowd. And it will also enable us to put in place the talent and the infrastructure. Many of the people who I have lined up, but they have to be formalized into the business and operational, so that we can go through the stages then to raise what we call the SDG 360 Game Changer Fund. So all about game-changing projects that are collectively can address the global goals at very significant scale. So that's it in a nutshell.
Wow, that sounds so exciting. And our audience who are listening to this would be interested to see how the progress can happen, and most importantly will be, how can we participate, will be the question. When you talk about this duality, I'm remembering when I was in India, one of my earliest trips. I was in a 5-star hotel looking down in the Bangalore city, which is the Silicon Valley of India. I was looking down the 5-star hotel building, and just outside, I'm talking about really outside, there's a very small border. I won't even call it a border. Just looking out of the window, I see this whole area of tent houses. Not even like houses with a hut, but tent houses. So that was a time when I still remember the impact it created on me, to see the real duality in play and people being comfortable with it. And that is the one that we want to see. Yes, there is duality. I mean, we say the world is never fair. How do we go about creating a redistribution of wealth? I mean, that's a conversation we are having here. And what role businesses play in this redistribution of wealth? And I would like to ask you, the part where, when business leaders, when they want to transform their business to the kind of work that we want them to do, be sustainable, everything. What do you think? How can we support them with that?
So, wow, there's an awful lot in that question that we've got to unpack, right? So let's just take the bit about being in the hotel and looking down onto the tent houses, and the fact that people were comfortable with that. I mean, we do, all of us get institutionalized over time, and it's hard sometimes to break out. So I think, first of all, it's really important to have role models, but also to have real experiences. So if those business leaders don't spend time with the people in those tent houses and see that they have real value and that they're incredible with inspiration and with help and support, they can really be innovative. They're already innovative to live as they do, but they need compassion. They don't need control. So the aid and philanthropic industry, there is a problem, right? It based upon the Bretton Woods kind of post-war environment. There is a massive power imbalance, and I was mentioning Jack Sim, a fellow Singaporean of yours, and he talks about the poor need dignity. They don't always need aid. They need the ability to trade, but they also need to be respected. They know what they want. They don't want, I mean, in his world of sanitation, they want something that is culturally appropriate, designed well, that absolutely works and isn't thrust upon them from some Western organization that thinks they're coming to solve their problems. And so first of all, I think, we have to get to a point where we respect the people, who we want to partner with, not dominate, not, have this power imbalance, not see as the next massive market, because that mentality, is just so dysfunctional. It perpetuates what we have. So ultimately, I mean, there's amazing organizations that are impact organizations working on the ground. An example might be Acumen Fund, or there's something called LGT Venture Philanthropy, and there's lots of small, relatively small impact investors. But what I'd like to see them kind of coming together with a much greater scale and a much greater organization with the education embedded as well, because just the money isn't enough. They need capital that's appropriate, not overly expensive, whether it's debt or equity. It's got to be fair, and it's got to tolerate failure in a portfolio structure where where the barriers to get that first money have to be lowered, that enables more to get on that sort of bottom rung of the ladder, like microfinance can provide in some areas. But if you think of microfinance as an example, it's kind of like the bottom rung of the ladder, and then there's an artificial sort of stopping point, almost like a ceiling, and then there's like 6 or 7 rungs of the ladder missing before you get to so-called working markets, and people can struggle to really break out of that bottom level unless they get the help and the capital. So to your point about what big corporations can do, I actually think, I believe many won't change. The reality is many are just won't change. I think some of the better ones, so if you take in India, there's Mahindra Group and there's Tata, and there's some incredible organizations that absolutely are motivated the right way. And they should be helped. Those who aren't serious about change, and I'm not just talking about impact wash or greenwash, because there's a lot who want to kind of bask in the sort of limelight of the glow of feel good, but without doing good. And that is really, really important, that there's transparency, and that we use all the tools to change those corporations, and especially the people who are financing them. So the investors, both in the debt and the equity and the market-based investments, they're the ones who are sanctioning often the kind of behavior that's negative, or that can enable behavior that's positive. So to the point is, I think we should leave no room for negative corporate activity, but we should help them move to doing more good. The ones who are really serious, They should be helped with open innovation, with consumer groups that support them. They should do everything to build them up. Equally, we should recognize that there is a natural scale when corporations become too big, and they will always find it near impossible to innovate thoroughly and naturally around doing the right thing. It's just like it's a natural law. I don't know whether you've seen this amazing video called The Impossible Hamster. And if you Google it, it's basically this hamster that is growing infinitely, and you realize there are limits to growth. The hamster becomes bigger than the world at some point. Paraphrasing. So organizations that become like that impossible hamster, they're going to essentially fail. They're going to explode. So the point is, to create a healthy economy, we need masses and masses more, and especially to address the Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm sure your audience know that these are the UN 17 SDGs. You can see them behind me, everything from poverty and climate change and education and equality and human rights. All of these things are truly important. But the term goals, it's wrong, because it's too nice to have.
It's something of the future.
Say again?
It's like something of the future, like you want to achieve it. So you're like, tell me a little bit about your context to this.
Yeah, but exactly. So it's nice to have. A goal is something that you move towards. It's something that's good. But actually, these are risk and resilience threats. If we don't address these things very quickly, the human suffering, I mean, in the wake of the pandemic, is already, significant. But a lot of people forget that before the pandemic, we still have 2 billion people around the world who do not have access, to clean water and sanitation. For some, these goals are very, first world problems, or first world opportunities. But these issues are they're life and death, and their quality of life for the vast majority of people on this planet. And therefore, if we don't address them, so if you would ask me a question, ask me, Steve, what is the thing you hate the most in this world?
Yeah, Steve, what do you hate the most in this world?
I hate the extremes of inequity. That is the thing
high
that
five,
just
Steve.
High five. So that's the thing that just drives me crazy. Now, do I hate inequity? No, I think inequity is always going to happen. We're always going to have people who are more successful. Of course, there's going to be always people who are more beautiful than me, and there's always going to be, differences on so many levels.
Yes.
But actually, if we get down to who we are as people, we're all equal. If we strip away, our posh clothes and our accents and whatever, we want the same things pretty much. And if you look at those extremes of inequity and the fact that we're not enabling job creation by how we use not just our financial assets, all of our resources, our natural capital, our social and our human capital, if we don't get better at using those, the world will be a darker place. But if we do get better at using them, we all are winners. That's the thing that amazes me. People don't get. Yes. So, and if you think of those billionaires, I think the world is better for billionaires. I think we need ambition. However, what I don't like is where their money gets trapped in a system of just going round and making more money in a financial system. If there were better ways of actually helping them invest in the real economies of the world more intelligently, alongside the institutional money from pensioners and others through their savings and pension funds, and government support as well. If we can do that, we can change the quality of life, and we can save lives all over the world. And I think that's worth doing. And I know you do too.
Yes. And my heart is just singing so loud. It's like, yes, 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 for everything you're saying. Because when we introduced the concept of conscious capitalism, I'm so with you that there is a group of people in the capital market that we can't do anything with them. I'm so with you on that. And I will tell you briefly on what next is happening. And then we have these new entrepreneurs that's coming up that we want to embed in them the conscious living, the space of conscious businesses, socially involving, social impacting businesses. So we are kind of uplifting them so that they can join in. So we're creating what we call in our Buckminster Fuller's term, to not to do the, Bucky, right? Buckminster Fuller?
I was going to say, what's your favorite Buckminster Fuller quote? And I saw it on your website.
I'm going to say that. So it is not about, it's about creating new reality that makes the existing reality obsolete.
Obsolete.
Yes,
absolutely.
That's what we are into. And I'm so happy you mentioned Mahindra Finance. I'm a Mahindra Group, because Mahindra Finance CEO Ramesh Ayerji is our mentor, one of our dear mentor, and he's been in our space. I want to just quote him, and it's kind of, I want to ask you one last question after that. He talked to me. We were in his office almost for 2 hours talking about all these situations in India and all of that. And I asked him, he said one thing about what he was doing in his business, which really touched me, and all about what you're talking about today, and why you mentioned Mahindra Finance as something up in your mind, Mahindra Group in your mind as the first company. He said, Azeeza, there are so many people, we're giving loans to the tractor, these guys in the rural area that needs all our services. We're giving them these funds. And then sometimes money is not coming back to them, because they get stuck in somewhere. And he was very excited on how we support these businesses, get more clarity so they can be better funded. Then he said, Azeeza, then I asked him, so what do you do when you can't get back the money? And what would a normal banking person or finance person say? Well, we'll just take back all their stuff, we'll just close it off. He said this, Azeeza, we will first identify and confirm that this is a genuine case, number one. Number two is, we'll sit down and come out with a solution for them. It's like getting them as part of the ecosystem to ensure that they are energized in order for them to be, flowing back the money that's supposed to be, flown back.
Right.
So this is what really touched me. And that's where, the stand is. And that's why they are growing exponentially. They have so much of clarity, and they have been, doing some amazing work in India as well. So thank you so much for mentioning Mahindra.
Yeah. But you know what? I'll reference somebody, if you don't mind, in Nigeria. So a few years ago, I was asked by a really great friend to help raise money for a tractor, interestingly. So there's a foundation I don't know whether you know the landscape of Nigeria, but in northern Nigeria, there's a place called Kaduna State. And in Kaduna, there's a place called, a big city called Jos. And not far from Jos is this little place called Kafanchan. And I've never been to Nigeria, so but I know a lot of people there, and particularly I know a man called John Dada, and John Dada runs the FanSwam Foundation, and my friend basically had. Can you hear me? I'm not sure whether the audio is working very well. Is it?
Yes, it is. I can hear you.
Okay, fine. So this gentleman, John Dada, he runs an integrated development foundation in this place called Kafanchan, and it's on what's called the cross, where the railway lines cross in North Nigeria. It's not an easy place to live, and it's not an easy place to work for reasons that many people may be aware of. Anyway, there was a discounted tractor program from the government, and they paid about a $3,000 deposit. And then this was back a few years when there was election violence. Not the current head of or prime minister, but the previous one, Goodluck Jonathan. And there was a lot of election violence and people killed, and it was really awful. And they used the remaining, the balance for this tractor as to survive their organization. Anyway, so they'd run out of money, and they got a letter saying, your tractor's going to be ready in a month. Can you pick it up? And they had to pay £7,000. So I helped put together a little campaign and raise £7,000, and we called the campaign Fast Tractor. Now, what was really amazing is we got the money to them. They got the tractor, paid the balance. this triumphant procession to get it back to Kafanchan, and then this tractor became an income generator for the village, because they used to rent it out to other, and still do, to other villages, and it became really the workhorse. So first of all, what Mahindra's doing on that level, I'm sure they would know that that this is an economic development tool in this case. However, what John was doing with his development foundation is they were doing work in, they had a Cisco Academy, they did agriculture, they had light manufacturing, and they had health. Now, what's interesting, the health, they were working on HIV, but that came about because they were providing microfinance loans that were not being repaid. And at the time, they wanted to know why were these loans, they were being repaid, and then the repayment slowed down. And it was because people were having to pay for medication and on the black market, and there was so much stigma attached. They were prioritizing that rather than their loans. So when they listened and found out what the problem was, they realized they had to create a healthcare prevention and management and facility. And they also provided help with the loans and the business that enabled people to service those loans. So the bottom line is, sometimes you don't realize this if you're in some bank, in London or wherever it might be. You have to really understand what the situation is on the ground, and you have to really develop human-centric, joined-up thinking solutions. It's not just about the health. It's not just about the agriculture or the water. It's about all of these things together. And if you do that, healthy returns can be made that can help fund others, and that can work for investors too. It becomes a circular economy type situation. And then when you have, advanced agricultural practices that are not destructive to the environment, then you have longevity, as I'm sure you know. So, but this is such an exciting discussion for me, because as we talked about that umbrella and the drone, the drone and the shovel, what am I talking about? Or the helicopter and the coal face. I mean, there's many terms for it. My life is a bit weird, because sometimes I'm talking about policy and structuring funds and raising very large amounts of money, but I'm always doing that with an eye to what's happening on the ground and how that capital can not just trickle down, because I don't believe it trickles down. You have to organize better structures and mechanisms that enable it to go, and ideally not where we're cherry picking, where we're essentially systemically doing this. A lot of investors cherry pick and have done for a long time, but I think of it more like nature and like the environment. If you think of a forest, if you try and just create big trees, or pick big trees, you're going to fail. But if you nurture the base of the forest, if you provide the water and the nutrients, and the oxygen that it needs, the big trees spring up wherever. But guess what? The aggregate value of all the vegetation is far greater. And it becomes like nature, a living, breathing, dying, living ecosystem. And it's just the natural order of things, rather than these monocultures of enterprise that actually aren't great for any of us. They're great for a few for a short term, but soon life catches up with them. And it's a lonely life when you're just on your own in a big tree.
That's right. That's right. I'm so happy we are having this conversation, and as much as the audience will see, I think this conversation can go on for hours. I think we should take it into Clubhouse and have this going, see how long we can speak and who else can be part of it. Because what you're talking about is the top-down approach, which is so important, because we are interested in the grassroots level. And one of the inspiration for me when I stepped into India was Mr. Ajay Thakur, the SME head of the Bombay Stock Exchange, the SME platform. And when I did an interview with him, all he talked about is about the small, medium enterprises, that how they have, when they got listed, they have increased their value, and the kind of expansion they did, the kind of job opportunities they came out of them, and how they have been able to contribute to the economy at a whole new level. So with a leader like that, leaders are like that available in different top organizations, focusing on a top-down approach, because at the end of the day, it's a grassroots level people that we want to reach.
But you have to have both, and as much as I love the whole concept of grassroots on its own, the reality is you without intelligent top down and also sort of middle level support,
Yes.
because you need leadership on every level,
Yes.
And sometimes the heights of industry and finance are very difficult to reach, but the better ones are engaged. But if you have leadership on every level, then that really is what creates the fiber to connect. But what I will do is I'll make an introduction. Maybe you can pass it on, because somebody who, I mean, I've been on Clubhouse for 5 weeks. Let's talk about Clubhouse in a moment. But it's changed my life completely. Yes. But one of the amazing contacts is a former banker from New York and London, and he worked for Lehman Brothers and some of the bigger banks, and he's Indian origin, but he now lives in Tokyo, where he spent a lot of his time when he was in finance. So that's where he's retired to a couple of years ago. But he's made an organized, quite a sizable investment into an Indian fintech venture called ANVI. I think it's ANVI.
Okay.
And this is a banking, kind of an AI-powered banking product with, I think, about 30 million customers already.
Wow.
And what they're serving is kind of the underbanked or unbanked, but especially the sort of trade level. And they're working with the kiosks. Is it the Kirwana or that are the distribution partners?
Okay.
And it's essentially a banking service on a phone or on a card that enables people to have a whole range of financial services that are much more affordable than some of the alternatives, but also real time and supported through sort of AI technology. So the whole point that he's called Nashita Das or Nashikita Das. The whole point he was telling me, and which I can relate to, is the economic potential if you just give these relatively small amounts in the right way without onerous charges, and facilitate the trade with insurance products and other things. If you can do that, the GDP is amazing what it can actually deliver. Incredible. Yes. Absolutely incredible. And that's one person. And I'll also introduce you to a very good friend of mine. If you want to interview him on this channel, he would love it. And he's called Bremley Lingdo, and he's from the rainy region of India, the Meghalaya, I think it is, in the north. And he's working with rural farmers and with sustainable development on the ground. He's just spent a year back in India. Incredible guy. He's got a background. He's worked with the UN. He's worked across a whole bunch of organizations. And these are people who really understand what's happening on the ground.
Fantastic. This is what's happening right now. A lot of learned people who went out of India saw the power of what's happening. Today's conversation happened to be focusing on India, guys, but this is about Asia as well.
This is a global conversation.
Global conversation. A lot of people from overseas have gained the experience and the wealth, and they have stepped back to India to work on grassroots. In fact, Mr. Steve, we should work more with these kind of leaders to be that change for the top-down approach, which will be very empowering. So it's already almost 40 minutes we are in this conversation. Guess what? In about
I've got another 5 hours. Let's continue.
Yeah, I know, but we're
I'm kidding.
No, but we're going to take it for sure. I want you to join us in our clubhouse every Thursday night, 10 p.m. We are having Investing in Asia conversation. Basically, we don't use the word impact business, but everybody we talk about socially conscious businesses. So join us there. And we're going to
10 p.m. what time?
Singapore time. It's in about Singapore time. That's in about 20 minutes from now.
Okay, all right. So I will do that. But can I give a plug for mine as well? So
yes. Please do.
10 p.m. but UK time.
Right.
So what's that in? So it's the early hours of the morning for you.
Yes.
But so on a Thursday I do it 10 o'clock UK time. On a
Wow.
Sunday morning I do it 8 a.m. UK time.
I like
And
that
on a
one.
Tuesday I do it 5:30 UK time. And the
Right.
title of my club is Funding the Global Goals.tv, like you can see
Wow.
behind me. But the name of the room I actually host, and it's sometimes between 3 and 5 hours long, is System Innovation in Finance to Fund the SDGs. So yourself and your listeners who are on Clubhouse, on for the moment only on iPhones, but hopefully Android soon, everybody's
Yes.
welcome.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm definitely doing that. Give me the one more time. Thursday, 10 p.m. Sunday, 8 a.m. and
Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. So
okay.
it's all on my LinkedIn profile, Steve Podmore, on
Yes,
LinkedIn.
we'll put that
And,
into the comment box.
and it's pinned at the top, so anyone can find me. And if you want to pitch or discuss what we really need to get capital to go where it needs to go, join me there, and I'll join you in 20 minutes for sure.
Yes, thank you so much. And we are so happy, friends, that this conversation, as you can see, is going to be continued in Clubhouse on a very regular basis. So join us there. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And Steve, thank you so much for being in the space with us today and sharing your wealth of experience and your heart with all of us.
Azeeza, thank you so much. And thank you. I really appreciate this. So I'll see you a bit in Clubhouse. All right.
Yes, see you soon.
Bye-bye.